Hey, we're live.
Live. Awesome.
Hey. So, for those of you who are just listening, not seeing, I've invited Jonathan Small to join me today, and, oh, wow, we've already got people joining. Hey,
I
everybody.
love it.
Welcome.
This is fun.
This
This
is
is the first time we've
fantastic.
done it, on Substack on the desktop. Substack desktop.
Yeah, this
It's
is
awesome.
cool because I did it from the phone last time, which had mixed results. It was
Well, at least our mics sound good, and I have a soundboard, which I can use, like,
Oh, yeah.
I can go like this. Which I couldn't do on the
So that goes along with the sound in my head all the time. Yeah,
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 exactly. That's the
perfect.
soundtrack of my life.
I need a cheering crowd, yeah. Yeah, that's what I need. So for those that don't know John already, he's kind of the resident one of the resident Gen X experts on Substack, really, rising up and caught my attention.
Right.
We're both Gen X guys. Um, it just has all kinds of thoughts around life and careers and retirement and media and where things are going, and I had been on John's show a few weeks ago, and so I invited John to my show, and this will go out to all my career folks too. So I know I have a lot of folks who are Gen X, and maybe they want to be Gen X because we are the coolest generation.
Wannabe Gen Xers.
Want to be Gen X. They love our music. Uh, so we're going to talk today about kind of all this stuff. We really want to get into what's going on with careers, and especially for folks in our generation, what's happening with the economy and the environment, what it means for us, and where it's all going. So, John, maybe just a quick intro about your background and who you are before we dive into it.
Sure. Somebody just asked what's the Gen X range, so I'm telling them 1965 to 80. But if you're past 80, it doesn't matter. We still love you.
We love you.
But that's generally the age category that is cited in the media. Anyway, a little bit about me. So hello, I am the host of Small Talk on Substack. Get it because my last name is Small. It kind of worked. Small Talk works as a name. I have a background. I am a multi-hyphenate now, as I think many Gen Xers are. But I started my career in the magazine world. I worked in many different magazines in New York as an editor and a writer, including Glamour magazine and Cosmo and Twist magazine and Fitness magazine and Child magazine and then Maxim magazine and Stuff magazine. So I worked at all these magazines in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then something kind of funny happened. The magazine industry stopped existing. So I had to find a new path and kind of got out fairly early in I still have friends that are clinging on to the magazine industry, but kind of got out but always kind of continued in the content creation world. Got myself first into sort of the online world, working for a company called Break Media, doing break.com. And then eventually got into digital video, and I started to work for YouTube, and then I worked for the Game Show Network of all places. We made content, online game show content, and then also got into podcasting and started my own podcast called Right About Now, and then also created a company where I made podcasts for other people. So I've had kind of a career that maybe resembles a lot of people who are watching today, which is that I started doing one thing in the creative industry that seemed like it was going to take me through till retirement. But unfortunately, the world had other ideas for us magazine folk. And so a lot of us had to figure out other ways to make an income and put our kids through college. But I would say at the end of the day, I still consider myself a writer. I wrote a book last year. I have it right here. It's called Right About Now.
Nice.
And it was based on my podcast of the same name. And it was basically, the story of origin stories of really famous writers, like how they became writers. And I always found that really interesting to ask people, like you're asking me, what is my origin story? That's part of me. Yeah, it's really interesting to sort of hear how people got involved, people who have made it in their industries kind of got into it. And so I chronicled that and put it in a book that came out last year.
Fantastic. Yeah. So also there'll be links in the posts that I make with this, so you can find John and look up his Substack and follow him and get his book and all that good stuff. We have been an interesting generation. We are the bridge generation. Somebody was referring to us as that, and we definitely are. So we started and grew up in a time before the internet, before technology. It was all
Yeah.
very analog and analog maps and books and meeting in person and all the stuff that we did where there were no cameras present. Thank you. No internet present. So we just we were present, which was interesting. And then as we're going through college and getting into our jobs, technology appeared. And
Yeah.
so we had to adapt and quickly change. So there are no more card catalogs and no more typewriters and all the stuff that we kind of grew up with. So we were the generation that did a lot of the invention of the technology and the internet. I remember being at IBM back in '93 when this internet thing first kind of started. And people were like, "This is a document you're reading from around the world." It's like, what? It's like,
Yeah.
it's just mind blowing at the time, right? So I think we've had to pivot a lot. And I would say what you mentioned is exactly true. We found ourselves at a point pretty much every step of the way where what was before was now gone.
Hmm.
And everything we had been preparing for and were told about, having these lifetime jobs and having a pension and you're going to have this 40, 50-year career in one job with one employer, gone.
That's
No
gone.
such thing. When did you first start noticing? Because I had another guest on recently, and when we were talking about when did tech change, and we kind of put our fingers on it. But when did you start noticing the media industry was changing? It's like, uh-oh, there's something happening with my world of magazines and
Yeah.
editorial.
That's an interesting question. I don't know if there was like that one moment, but I definitely, when the dot com started in the magazine industry in the beginning, when there was a dot com, say like a Maxim.com or a Glamour.com, the people who worked for the dot coms were like the people that couldn't get the jobs at the magazines. Um, and so like,
That's
and that's a
funny.
mean thing to say. And I'm sure there's some people watching now that are like, that bastard. But it was kind of true at the time because like the sort of glamour job was to get like the job at the magazine, right? And then
Yeah,
like if
yeah.
you were working your way in, you might get a job at the dot com. That was kind of where you might like sow your seed. Now I probably would have started in dot com if I had started later, but I started when dot com wasn't even a thing. So it's not like I was special or anything. I had just, done the magazine track. But I think I started noticing when all of a sudden the dot com started to become more important than the magazine, and they started hiring the top people to do the dot com and not the magazine. And I started having to realize that the way I had to now start writing articles was more for online consumption than for magazine consumption.
Right.
Um, and so that became pretty apparent. And I remember like talking to some people and asking them like, well, how do you write stories that are supposed to be online as opposed to in magazines? And there was like a whole other set of rules that I had to learn, right?
Yes.
Um, and then like I said, I kind of got out a little bit before the complete demise of magazines. So I started working for a dot com in like 2003 in Los Angeles. It was a company called Break, and Break was like the precursor to YouTube. It was a website that showed videos of people falling off skateboards and like all the things that would suddenly become very popular, 4 years later on YouTube. But had to be a place that people could watch those videos. And we started creating, that was such a successful site that we started creating all these different blogs at the time that were sort of all centered around men's interest things. So we did like a mixed martial arts and a one about, car racing and one about men's fashion. And I realized like the days, it was so cheap and there was so little infrastructure to build those kinds of magazines that I couldn't imagine, online magazines, that I couldn't imagine ever going back to a time when you would actually have to do a print version of that. And that it was just so much more immediate, the effect then when we were working in magazines, we were always like 3 months into the future. So like
Right.
we
Yeah.
would be in
Yeah.
the summer, we would be working on like the winter issue, but at the dot coms, we were working on like what was happening that day, that moment, that every minute. And we could just put it out in a second. And then, if it didn't work out, then we could take it right down. And there was just so much more flexibility we could have. And I sort of saw like, there is no way that magazines can survive this, right? Like, why would anybody buy a print publication when they can get it for free online? And that was the other thing, it was all free.
Exactly.
So,
And
yeah. So I just, the writing was on the wall for me. And so that became very obvious to me. And then digital video suddenly came along and I had to learn how to do that because that suddenly became the next big thing.
it's still growing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still growing. Yeah.
No, it's crazy.
So,
I mean, similar with the software industry that we used to have lead times of a year, 6 months, where it's like you're working on this project and you're like, this is going to launch in 6 months. And so you're kind of slowly working on this thing. And then there was definitely ebbs and flows. There were cycles. And then this internet thing happened. It was similar where some people were going to Netscape. They were leaving Apple to go to Netscape. We're like, why would you do that? Why would you go to Netscape and this internet thing? It's just so inferior to, at the time, to stuff that could be
And at
delivered on
least people can get
CD-ROM.
equity in these companies. Some of the people who were smart enough to go and get equity in some of those companies, man, I wish I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
I'd have to be, I always think like, why was I remember funny, it's just today I saw my stock options for Break. Like I was going through some old stuff. I was poised to make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars if this company sold, but that was not one of the companies, unfortunately, that sold $10 billion.
Oh, it was such a heartbreaking time. Yeah.
It was.
Though I was right, obviously before the dot-com boom and crash. And I remember we had been working for a client. At this point, I was independently consulting. I'd already learned that might be a more secure way to live my life. And they gave us some equity as a bonus, right? So it's kind of on the side. And I remember the day they went public, and we were, I looked at it and I said, oh my God, we're going to buy a house. It's like we could buy a house. And then the crash happened. And I watched the options go from $70 a share to $7 a share to 70 cents a share to 7 cents a share. I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. So there were definitely people who got lucky. I mean, a lot of it was luck, because we couldn't predict who was going to succeed or not, right? But I think the thing that we did learn, and I've seen with people who've survived through this, is being able to adapt and pivot quickly. I think to be able to read the tea leaves, as you said, saying, the attention and money's going here.
Yeah, I better learn about
Better go there now.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course, I almost feel like every time I go there, then that thing becomes the thing that now we have to leave. So like, I almost feel like, don't follow my lead, because, I got into podcasting, which was really cool and lucrative for a few years. And then now it's kind of, it's not jumped the shark, but it's definitely very oversaturated. Now I'm in Substack, which I love and I'm having so much fun with, but who knows when Substack will be the fleeting thing.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
I think the lesson from all this, nothing lasts forever. So that's the thing to remember. It's that concept of something not even lasting forever, but lasting enough, your lifetime or your working life, that's gone. It used to be a thing, and you could make a bet, go with it, and be like, I can get through 40 years of this. Then it was like maybe 20 years of this. Now it's like maybe a year if you're lucky. It's like AI is the new hot thing.
That's why it's good to have a lot of things going on. Try to have a few things going on.
I think so.
Rather than just like
one
thing.
So how do you approach that? Because you do have a lot going on, and I do too. It's like, I think it's almost like somebody had described it as a multi-potentialite, which are nice way to say ADHD. But you jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, break to make a living. Yeah, there's some nice euphemisms for it. I call it survival. I guess I've become sort of an example of somebody who tries to do a lot of things at once. And it's funny because I just recently, there was a prompt, I think I put it on I think I told you about it and you put it on your chat GPT, where it said like, what am I doing wrong? Like where are my blind spots?
Yeah, right? Where are my blind spots? Yeah. Yeah.
And of course it said, you do too much. It probably told everybody that. It's like but it's like you're trying to do too much at once, which is, a good thing and a bad thing. So, I mean, what am I doing now? I mean, at any given day, I'm doing copywriting for, advertising companies or for brands. I've got some clients in my podcast business. I started a podcast business during COVID, which was a great time to start a podcast business, by the way. A lot of people wanted to make podcasts during COVID, but then COVID stopped and less people wanted to do podcasts. But I still have a lot of clients from that time in my life, one being SAG-AFTRA, which is a great client, which is the union, and some other higher brands and stuff like that. And then, I teach writing. I sometimes do some coaching and consulting. And I do my Substack, which I really enjoy. Still trying to kind of figure out how to monetize the Substack. Enjoy creating it. What else do I do for a living? I DJ. I actually have a business DJing, which is something that I did literally when I was 18 years old, and it's come back because it turns out there's quite a demand for people who play the music I play, which is like 80s and 90s clap.
Yeah.
So I'm making it work. It is a little bit of a house of cards. I feel like if one of these jobs should fall out, then I'm like, oh boy, that's I got to figure out how to fill in that hole. And then I should say that I work a lot for Entrepreneur Magazine. I do actually, even though I never, I thought the magazine publishing was gone forever. They actually still hire. They actually still have
Yeah.
they have a print magazine. And so I do a lot of work for them. But yeah, so it's just a lot. It's like using all the skill sets that I have and trying to just kind of put them in lots of different buckets. And I think that's kind of important that we do that. I mean, the one thing I learned a few years ago is that the days of me just sending a resume out and then
Mhm.
in for a full-time job are gone. I think.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's an exception, but it just seemed like such a waste of time. I wasn't getting any response. I knew that I was overqualified for some of the jobs I was applying for, but I just felt like whether it was ageism or, whatever it was, I was not getting the calls back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to adapt. Like you said, we're adaptable as Gen Xers. And I try to tell my friends who are Gen Xers, like, play that game anymore. It's not going to work.
Right. Right.
Maybe in the 30s that would work, but it doesn't work anymore. And so,
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I know you've had some other guests that have talked about this too. That's like, the ageism is real, whether it's a little subtle or very overt.
yeah,
But they have legal teams that make it very careful how they do
yeah,
that now. But that is the reality. And I think the worst thing to do, and that's hard, I know, for the folks listening, is to cling to what you know and cling to the past.
mm,
And I know some people that were in the media business, print business, that they held on with their fingernails to the very end, and then they found themselves unhireable. They're like,
yeah,
I can't get a job because I have no web experience. I have no design online experience. And they're
right,
kind of left afloat. And I think that's the thing. I call it the canary in the coal mine. So I wrote an article about this, and I said, there are really smart people at your company or in your circle. And I'll never claim I'm that person. But there are really smart people who seem to predict the future pretty well. And they seem to be very connected, and they kind of know where things are going. So I call them the canaries. And so I picked my canaries. And when I was in a company, I had a canary, and I
mm,
watched them. And
right.
when I see that person leaving and getting in a lifeboat and going somewhere, I'm like, it's time to go.
Somebody
And
knows.
inevitably, it would be time to go. That company was going to fail in about a year, or at least become kind of irrelevant. So I think that's true. Is the worst thing to do is try to cling to the past. And that's a danger I think people get into as they get older, is like, well, this is what I know. It's what I'm familiar with. And I can't learn new things. And it's
And
not true.
there's also the golden handcuffs. Some people who are
Oh,
in
sure.
jobs right
Yeah.
now, who are really scared to leave because of, the health insurance, which is something I'm going to write about soon. I mean, that is really an
It is a
issue.
huge problem. Yeah.
It's a huge issue, but the problem is then you kind of cling on to these jobs, and I understand why you do it. I mean, I've done it. Everybody's done it, but without having any kind of side hustles or anything. And then they go away very quickly.
Mhm.
And suddenly you find yourself, maybe you have a little bit of a few months of
Like a severance.
paid
Yeah.
a severance, but after that, and so, I was lucky when I lost my job a few years ago. I did have my podcast business, so it wasn't like, oh my God, we're totally screwed. But
Sure. Yeah.
I still had to scramble, and so I do advise that people sort of like even if they have a full time thing, like sort of have something going on the side. I think,
Yeah.
be-
Totally.
and it's also fun because
It is.
chances
It
are you're
is.
probably really sick of your job anyway if you have a good job.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you do.
this
You
is
kinda
not
learn
doom and
everything in
gloom. Like
4
you can
years.
have
You're like,
fun.
"Now what?" It's like, yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
don't think we should see this as like a prison sentence or like, oh, we're screwed. Like, I think this is a really fun time to be Gen
Exactly.
Xer because you can really do stuff that you never could do before. And I mean, I wrote an article about how like you don't have to be like Princess Leia or Luke Skywalker anymore. You don't have to like be the hero protagonist of your story. You can be the Yoda. You can be like more like the sage, more you don't have to do all the dirty work and the grunt work anymore. It's
Right.
kind of a cool if you can find that position.
I think that's absolutely true, and there is a moment in your life, and it is a bit I was talking with somebody about this. There is a loss of identity that happens for a little bit when you
Mhm.
kinda step out of that primary career.
Yeah.
For me, it lasted about 6 months where I was like, "Who am I now? If I'm not this, what am I?" Right?
Yeah.
And getting rid of that main character energy and saying, "Well, maybe I'm not in the spotlight anymore." And at first that stings a bit, and then you kinda make peace with it, and then you realize, "Wow, what freedom this is to no longer be in that spotlight."
Exactly.
And to help people with stuff that's evergreen. There are evergreen issues. That's the thing I always tell people is like, we've built a foundation of skills and knowledge and experience across all the stuff we've done in our lives. And that could be work and it could be school and just relationships and just surviving. There are things that are always true about the human condition and human relationships and dynamics and politics and all that stuff. And you've navigated it, you've survived it, you've recognized some of it. It's so there are younger people that could use some help with that. And I think being
Mhm.
the Yoda to these people and their secret weapon, sometimes I refer to myself as their secret weapons. Like, don't tell anybody you're working with me, but I'm going to help you navigate this situation with your boss, your coworkers. And I recognize that pattern. Guess what? They're getting ready to do a layoff.
Yep.
We see it and we know it. And now we can kind of reach back and give some help and help people navigate this stuff. And I think it's an interesting place to be, and it's a very fulfilling place to be. Um, and I think there's also, as you said, a chance to come full circle. And what I've
Mhm.
been finding in my own life is there are things I gave up in my teens and
Yeah.
20s, like, that's not going to make money, so I can't do that anymore. Give up on it. You're too busy. Well, now we're kind of coming back to it and doing things like writing. I've been writing
Yeah.
fiction and poetry and learning to play
Writing things you
guitar
never wrote
again.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You
really
for you taking
fulfilling.
taking beautiful walks and chronicling it
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
Substack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've lost my camera shyness, so it's like, I don't care. That's another nice thing
Well,
about
that's
getting
another
old.
thing, you
It's like,
don't
I
give
don't
a
care.
shit if you anymore. Like, I probably would have if you had told me in my 20s to write a Substack about, whatever was on my mind about my generation, whatever it was, I would have been like, "Oh, no, I can't. I can't do that. Like, nobody cares about me." And now it's like, well, I don't give a shit anymore, which is really nice to not have that burden of just not caring what other people think so much. I
It's
wish
so
I could
nice.
I wish I could instill that in my children and, in young people today. Like, that's like the biggest, if I could talk to my 25-year-old self, it's kind of like, nobody gives a shit.
They don't. They
They
don't.
really don't. Just do what you wanna
Yeah.
do, and it's okay to fail, like, everybody
Yeah,
fails. But it's
exactly.
hard to when you're 25, it's hard to hear that message. I mean, you're just, you're insecure and you're trying to
Yeah,
find.
it is hard. I've been trying to coach some people through it, my kids included, where they'll care about something or worry about something, and they'll say, "Okay, and then what? What's gonna happen?" And they'll
Yeah,
describe it like this, and this, and what's that really mean? What's gonna happen?
right.
And at the end, we kinda get to a point, it's like, "Well, nothing." It's like, "Then who
Yeah,
cares?"
right.
Like, does that person
It's
really
like
matter?
cognitive behavioral psychology, which I did, or cognitive behavioral therapy, which I did for a little while, which is to deal with my anxiety, which is, yeah, like, if you play out the worst case scenario, it's not really that bad
No,
oftentimes.
it's not that bad.
Yeah,
And you could plan through it. Like, okay, if that happens, I'll do this. And
yeah,
literally documenting that. I tell people it sounds like a silly exercise, but I do this plan A through D of worst case to like super worst case. Like I'm living in my
yeah,
brother's basement is my plan D, right? And it's there. I'm like, I could. Okay. If that happens,
right.
that happens. And once you've done it and kind of put it on a shelf, a lot of stress goes away. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
And now I can take bigger risk and I can do things because it's like I'd rather fail trying to do something big than grind away for 20 years doing nothing at the end of my life. So it is a
I think we
refreshing freedom.
we so often wanna know, "Well, what if I do this? What's gonna happen?" Right? We hate ambiguity,
Y
especially creative people. I think creative people, me included, I guess, one of the things I didn't like not knowing what was gonna happen. Well, if I write this book, is it
Sure.
gonna be a success? What about if it's not a success? Like, but part of life is just accepting the ambiguity of life. Like,
Yeah.
we just have
Yeah.
no idea how shit is gonna turn out.
I start from a
And
point of
most of the
failure.
stuff one of the things I yeah,
It's
one of
like,
the things I
okay.
learned writing my book and talking to people who, were very successful as writers is the plan that they had set out for themselves never went the way they thought it was gonna go.
Mhm.
Like, it's never the thing you think it's gonna be. I mean, they had success, but it wasn't really it wasn't so part of it was just that they did it, and they put it out in the
Right.
world, and yeah, out in the world, all these opportunities happen. But without putting it out in the world or without doing anything, then without that forward motion, then nothing can happen.
It's yeah, this friend of mine, Anna Kadena, was on my other podcast, and she described a study. I wish I could remember the exact details, but they asked people to create the perfect pot, and pottery on a wheel. And
Yeah.
one group, they said, I want you to make one perfect pot. You got 4 hours, you're going to practice, make a perfect pot. This other group, they said, I want you to make as many pots as you can, just as many, crank them out. Who cares, right? And at the end of that time, the best pots came from the people just crank stuff out because they kept
Mhm.
getting better and better and they were failing a lot, right? Failing a lot. And it's true. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. You don't control the environment. You don't control the world, how things are going to be received, timing. I've seen people
Yeah.
launch a product and it's like the worst thing happens in the world right that moment. And they're like, great. It's like, well, you can't control that.
You can't
So
control it.
just keep
And then
trying.
sometimes the things you think people are gonna really like, they don't respond, and then stuff that you didn't even think twice about, they actually are like, "Wow, that was really cool. I love that article." And you're like, "What? That article was the one that everybody
Exactly.
liked?" Like, I just don't know, and I
No.
think it's okay to not know. But yeah.
Yeah. You got to make peace. I know a lot of folks who are in the chat are probably Substackers too. Um, and that is the best advice we can give you. I mean, Ray Bradbury, I think, talks about this. He talks about writing with your passion, not your mind, not your
Mm,
mentality. And he said, you write, then go back and edit with kind of a
yeah.
more rational thought. And he said, do not think as you're writing. He said, that's the worst thing you can do. And I've seen this totally with my post and with my articles, like something agonized over for weeks, 2 likes, it's like nothing
Yeah.
happened. Something I was really angry about and passionate, and I cranked it out on my little phone keyboard and just blasted it in 15 seconds. It was like it went viral. I was like, you don't know. You
You
can't
never know.
predict it.
I mean, that term analysis paralysis is so true, and I think we do that. We just try to overanalyze. Well, if I do it this, maybe people won't like this, but if I do it this way, and I was just having this conversation yesterday with my son, who's a 28-year-old musician, and he's writing a lot of music, but he's going through all the things that people struggle with. Is my stuff? What is my sound? What is why is this person successful and I'm not? And I'm like,
Right.
I think
Yeah.
you're just thinking it too much. Just you're
Mhm.
so talented. Just put your freaking music out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You got to get
uh,
discovered. I mean,
right. And
people
it's so
need,
much luck. We always underestimate the role of luck too.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, somebody talked about that and they said if luck is a big factor or the factor, which it probably is, what are your odds if you wait till something's perfect and go out in the street and hold it up and
Right.
hope the right person sees it, or if you go out every single day and hold something up? Is luck going to strike once? Does
Yep.
lightning strike once in a lifetime, or do you get a chance if you go out every day and just do it? And that's the hardest thing I think to make peace with, but you do. You just have to do it. It's like just be present, take off all the nervous energy that's around it, and just kind of demystify it.
Yep.
Demystify it.
Get it
I
out of your
shared
head.
Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe shared something in a YouTube interview I shared recently, and he said, "Overcome failure by trying to fail." He said, "I want you to try to make the worst piece of art you can, to write the worst poem you can." He said, "Just do something horrible." He said, "I want you to succeed at failing and do it again and again and again. And by the time you're done, now you just like failure, who cares?" I mean, seriously, it
Yeah.
starts to mean nothing. And so it's a great exercise, like literally trying to fail, not being a
If that's your
perfectionist.
biggest fear, if your biggest fear is failure, yeah, then you should expose yourself to as much failure as
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
until the point of failure is like, who cares? Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, I think that's easier said than done. I mean, nobody likes to fail. I'm sorry. It's like
Of course.
it's the
Yeah.
worst
You'd rather
feeling.
succeed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it never is as bad as you think it's gonna be. That's the other thing. I worried so much about losing my job, and then when it happened, I panicked every day. I would wake up, "Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my job today. I'm gonna lose
Yeah.
my job today." And then it happened, and I was like, "This is not so bad. I'm actually kinda relieved."
Yeah. It can become a little too addictive, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
wow, this is kind of nice not having a job. Yeah.
Well, yeah, not having to deal with this or yeah, exactly.
How have you been finding this entrepreneurial part of your life that you've been in kind of doing a lot of different things and no longer having to report to somebody and go to a job that has rigid hours every day? It's a change. And
Yeah.
how do you feel about that as integrating into your personal life too? Because you have a family and things you
Yeah.
want to do.
I mean, I think I prefer it to my I'm somebody who really had like 9 to 5. Well, they weren't 9. I wish they were 9 to 5. I had full-time, office jobs most of my career. Like when I would go into the
Mhm.
office, I had a boss and then eventually I became the boss. Like So I had that life. I was not really a freelance entrepreneurial type of person. So this did not come naturally to me. Like I had to figure out how to do this on the fly. How to run a business, how to be my own business,
Right.
and that has been a real like learning challenge for me. But part of me, I take classes. I learn from people like you. I mean, I learn, I'm just constantly learning how to do it. And now I wouldn't really want it any other way. Aside from I do worry about money. I mean, everybody does, but
Sure.
and aside from that, like a little nagging thing, I feel like in terms of like the way I can control my own schedule, the fact that I don't have to work with like jerks all the time, and like have to deal with annoying bosses and people that are 30 years younger than me that are my boss that shouldn't be. And, all these things that you deal with, like, and I just feel like I've certainly, it's given me the opportunity to be able to participate more in my kids. Like, I hear about these dads, it's the cat in the cradle type of scenario
Yeah,
where,
I just wrote about that.
yeah, where it's like, when you're coming home, dad, I don't know when, I wasn't really the dad. I'm there, I'm able to go to the games. I'm able to go to the concerts. So I think that's really like special. And apparently, because I hear a lot of extremely successful people are like very involved in their children's lives. And I think I'm so
Mhm.
happy, blessed that I was able to do that. So there's trade-offs. Like I don't have the security of knowing that this check is going to be coming every 2 weeks and that I'm going to be getting my insurance. But at the same time, I have a lot more freedom to create my own reality. And, for me, one of the hardest things you said, like what was hard was when people would ask me what I do for a living. It was hard. Like it used to be so easy. I would say,
Yeah,
"Oh, I'm an
yeah.
editor at such and such magazine," and it was like people be like, "Oh," and depending on what magazine it was, I would get different
Right,
reactions.
right. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I couldn't say that anymore, and they'd be like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, what do I do? Like, do you have 25 minutes?" Like, okay, so, I mean, just even your my preamble to this podcast, probably people were probably like, "You probably
Right.
lost viewers," but that became hard because I so identified with my job, but I
Mhm.
don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's been a good thing. I think it's a good thing for me.
Super important. It's one of the things I tell people to do is you better disconnect your identity from profession, a job title,
Yeah,
and a company. Because much like what you described, when I said I'm a designer at Apple,
yeah.
whoa. When I said I
People
was a
things
designer
opened
at
up.
eBay, they're like, ew. And it was like literally
It's
the
true.
same job, different
Right.
companies.
And
And
nothing to do
then
with you. You're the same
yeah,
person.
nothing to
Yeah,
do with me. And so that is just part of your identity. Then if you tie your identity to a profession, well, if you're a telegraph operator back in the day, you're like, now what am I? Right? It can disappear. So it's the worst thing you can do is say, I am a this at works at this company. And I highly recommend that people stop doing that. There's another person on Substack, I'm trying to remember, I think his handles the Gray Thinker. And he said he goes to these parties and everybody says, well, I used to be an accountant. I used to be a lawyer. I used to be, he said, and one lady said, I'm a poet and I'm a gardener and I do this and that. And they're like, oh, when did you start writing poetry? And he said,
yeah.
stop defining yourself by something that's
You used
irrelevant. That's not really who you are.
yeah,
And I think that's important is to peel back the layers of your identity and say at the core of my essence, what am I? What have I always been? What will I always be? That no
right.
one else controls. It's not an easy exercise. I'll be honest, but so important to get to the truth of that because then your confidence is unshakable. It's yours.
Yeah, yeah,
It's yours.
right. Yeah, that's
So
good. I gotta write that down.
your
You got
meetings.
good
So,
stuff.
well, this is the thing I would encourage everybody to do, and it's I'm an introvert. I don't think John is. T-
I'm more of an introvert than you think, but I'm probably less introverted than you. Like I'm
yeah.
not. I'm socially. I am. I like. I'm definitely. I guess I'm an extrovert, but I don't like big parties. I don't like.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't figure that out. Like I have a little bit of social
So you
anxiety.
might be an ambivert. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that an ambivert? Okay, I
Yeah.
like that. Anyway, what were
Yeah.
you gonna say?
But I think one of the hardest things, especially in this day and age, is trying to maintain kind of connecting with people, networking. And if you live somewhere remotely like I do, it can be really hard. And if you no longer go to an office, if you're working remotely, you're independent. The thing I would encourage everyone to do, even if you do go to an office, is like start connecting with people that you would never interact with every day in the office and start networking with people like John that I've met. He has a wonderful community. He's building a bunch of Gen X people from all over the country, I think
Yeah,
the
that's been
world.
really fun. Yeah.
so much fun. And we do a call every couple of weeks or so. It's amazing. I have a friend in Costa Rica. I have a friend that's in Europe. I have, and so connecting with people really broadens kind of your horizons and gives you more ideas. And I think the partnerships is important because it brings in a new perspective that you wouldn't have from your background. And I think you're doing a bit of this too, right? You're connecting with a whole lot of people. I see you on a lot of lives, and doing a lot of
Yeah, I mean,
podcasting with folks.
I would go crazy if I wasn't connecting. I guess maybe that is the extrovert part of my personality, but I do work from home, right? And it's like basically I have interaction with my cat most of the day. I don't mind, but she's not a great conversationalist. So I like to get out there and I like to meet people. And I do find that when I meet people, there's always kind of cool things come out of it, either for them or
Yeah,
for me or for both of us. And so I'll take meetings. I'll just talk to people, especially people who are sort of in a similar situation than I am. I mean, it's not always sort of like an opportunistic thing. Like it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
help
It's just
talking.
fun.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I do, and I have really heard pretty loud and clear that there's kind of like a bit of a loneliness epidemic generally in general in the world. But I
Yes.
think certainly in our generation, especially with the kids growing up and moving out, seems a lot of guys surprisingly are feeling this even more than women. Women are, I think, in a lot of cases better at this than guys. But just in terms of forging like community and having lots of friends. And, a lot of guys find like their kids grow up and then like their only friend was their partner, and they're like,
Yeah.
and then they don't have a job. And then so they don't have their office friends anymore. And they just feel really like alone. And so I am trying to foster a kind of sense of community. I mean, there's one thing we do all have in common. We're all from this, in my case, a lot of people are from my generation. So we have a lot of the same cultural references and a lot of the
Mhm.
same and thoughts. And so it's, we're not cookie cutter people, but I think there is some sort of power in being able to talk to people who can relate to your situation.
Right.
There's something very
And your movie
freeing.
quotes and jokes, yes.
Yeah, right. I love that I can make a reference to something and people know what the hell I'm talking about. I was like, what did I say? Like, I said something the other day to a coworker of mine that was like a Gen Z or something like, for those keeping score at home or
All
something. I
right,
just made
yeah.
a David Letterman reference, right? And like, she would never know. I mean, what the hell I'm talking
I
about,
know,
Like
yeah.
that's my humor. Yeah. And it's like, I don't have to watch humor as much anymore.
I've seen an interesting I don't know if it's a pendulum swing or a full cycle, right? So there's as you live long enough, you start to see things repeat. And I remember way back when the internet was starting, it was all client server. You had these headless terminals and it was all in the cloud. We didn't call it the cloud. And then the cloud showed up. They're like, this is revolutionary. It's the cloud. I'm like, yeah, we had that. It was called client
Yeah.
server. And sure,
Right.
there are small differences, but there's a lot that repeats itself. What I'm starting to see, which is interesting, so I think we started with everybody had their own website and blog and their online
Mhm.
magazine, much like you had
Right.
experienced. Then social media rose up and everybody said, well, instead, we're going to have a Facebook page and we'll be on Twitter and we'll be here. And we can't have our own presence because no one wants to go to a walled garden anymore. And
Yeah.
so that's declined and they started laying off people. Now there's this interesting swing coming back that I'm starting to see that major companies and media outlets are wanting to recapture their audience. They're like,
Mhm.
they're going to start doing their own video. They're going to start
Yeah.
doing their own this and that because they've realized, as we all have, that you can't trust social media because now they're like, well, if you want your audience to see this, you need to buy ads. And that's still
Especially
not a guarantee.
And also
Right?
the way AI now with search, you're not gonna be found,
Yeah.
right? The way search works. So yeah, like the old days, you could depend on search engine optimization, but now the
Right.
way
Yeah.
AI works, it's not even sending you to yeah, so you have to own your own content and you have to be a
Yeah.
destination that people wanna go to.
So I think stuff like Substack makes that even more important. And I've been beating this drum because I've been on Substack since it first launched. Own your audience, you know.
Yeah.
Even if you're a career person and you have a job and you never intend to start a business, it doesn't mean you won't need to find a new job. And it doesn't mean you don't need to connect with people and build a network. So finding a way to build community, own an audience, and not be dependent on social media, which we've now finding out isn't so good for our mental health, super important. Super
So
important.
important. So important. And, I think a lot of us struggle with because we come from a generation where it was like kind of uncool to be braggadocious or to be kind of like
Yeah.
front and center. Like you didn't want to be an egomaniac. I think some of us are not always so comfortable with like
Yeah.
owning an audience or, being a thought leader in some way or, or putting ourselves, doing something like this, like saying, hosting a podcast or whatever. But I think get over that because it's kind of like, even if you're a kind of a shy, I mean, you said you're an introverted person. I think this is the way, unfortunately, people are communicating now. And so it's important to sort of understand a little bit about the different platforms that you can be. I'm not saying you should become a TikTok star, but, I think if you want to reach people, especially if you're trying to get your, if you are like a writer or trying to get your work out there, it is important to kind of like not be afraid to I don't know, toot your own horn or just be out there a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's been hard for me. I mean, I'm not natural. That is
it
not
hasn't been for
natural.
me either. It's been a challenge. Probably why I came so late to it. What I try to tell people is focus instead on the work, the product, not yourself.
Right. Not yourself.
So share whatever it is. Share the useful information. If you're a fiction writer, share your stories, your poetry, whatever it might be. Focus on that. And so you're just bringing it to people. And somebody I remember said this, and it was interesting. They said, if you've ever had the experience where your advice has helped one person, and I'm sure we all have, that they're like, you're really doing a disservice to the world by not sharing that, because do you really think it's just one person who could benefit from that advice? Right. Thousands, right? Thousands of people, millions if you really have good advice. And the same with your art, your music. It's like, this is a big world. So there are definitely people who would love to see what you have. And if you're not sharing it, then it's really, you're doing a disservice by not sharing it with those people and letting them experience it. And it's a mind shift, which is, it's not about me. It's about what I'm trying to offer, how I'm trying to help. And is it for everybody? No. But can it help some people? Sure. Okay. If that's so, then I should put it out there. I really should. Yeah.
It's good advice.
So as you're meeting a lot of Gen X people. And I know you had a show recently talking about retirement and financial advice and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the themes that are coming up that you're seeing recurring in these conversations and ways that people are working through this? I think that could benefit everybody, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, specifically in the retirement. I mean, so there's lots of different buckets, right, that I try to tackle, and I'm always kind of putting out. It kind of starts with what am I thinking about, like what is on my mind, and it turns out that a lot of what's on my mind is on a lot of my peers' mind. Turns out that I'm not that original, unfortunately. We all have a lot of the same things going on, and so as far as retirement goes, I mean, you brought it up in the beginning of the show. I think that a lot of us were under the impression that like our 401ks, if we had them, was going to be like, we were going to be our pensions. And they were never, and they were never meant actually to be pensions. It was kind of like, we were kind of fed a big lie there. And so, a lot of us are now looking at those 401ks if we even contribute to them. And if you're like me and you had a lot of different jobs over the years and like the 401k would change. And then sometimes you would, when you were freelancing, you weren't being contributing to, anyway, my 401k is nowhere near enough to like retire on,
Right.
So I think a lot of us are faced with that situation where the 401ks are not what we thought they were going to be. And now we're in, I think a lot of us, we're also called, you called us the bridge generation, but we have a lot of other bad nicknames. And one of them is that we're the sandwich generation, which I like to think is just because we like good sandwiches, because we used to make steakums and stuff like that when we were latchkey kids in the 80s. But it really is because we're in between a place where our parents are, like getting older and we sometimes need to care for them. And then we also have the kids getting older and they're going to college. So we're finding ourselves in this situation where it's like we're getting from both sides, financially and time-wise. And so a lot of people are struggling with that. So between the 401k not really panning out, and sort of seeing like, okay, I kind of wouldn't mind not working in 10 years. How do I get there?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if people want to all out retire, but they don't want to work as hard as they're working now.
Right.
And they don't see an end in sight. They don't see like, how can I actually, what am I supposed to do? Work till I'm 80? And so I think a lot of people are struggling. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. This is the negative side. I think one of the things that's been really encouraging for me to see is that even though a lot of us are going through that, we are incredibly resilient as a generation. And we have seen this movie before. Like we kind of went through this when the web came, web 2.0 or whatever, the web.com, the dot-com
Right.
boom.
Yeah.
And then we saw it, with the recession in 2008. And then, AI has now come and told us that it's going to take all our jobs. So we have been, and, we were even, again, like to even go back even further, like, from analog to digital and, I mean, all these different things that we've gone through, we seem to have always weathered the storm pretty well. And so I think we definitely have what it takes to get through it. Now, are we tired? Yeah, a little bit. Like, enough already. Can something just stay the same so we can enjoy our life
just
for
once.
5 minutes? Yeah. But it is encouraging to see that our generation, and we also still have like a sense of humor about it. Like I think we have a really good sense of humor, Gen X, and a good sort of sense of self-deprecating humor, maybe too much self-deprecating. We don't take ourselves as seriously as maybe some generations that have followed us. Not to be mean about, because I love our fellow generations, but somebody said we are the Chumbawamba as a generation. We get knocked down, but we see. I love that I
Oh, I love that.
understand that reference. We get knocked down, we get back up again. We're also the Chewbacca, whatever that means. It just looks like Chumbawamba, but it's totally awesome. Yeah, we are totally the Chumbawamba, and so this too shall pass. Like, we are going to get through this. I mean, it helps, maybe to listen to a podcast like this and hear what other people are doing. I mean, I think I find comfort in hearing. That's why I have people on my show. I mean, part of it is to share it with the world. The other part of it is like I'm in real time figuring out my own life.
Sure. Yeah.
Meeting people like you, meeting others, people who are finding, a kind of a second career, who have already had success in their first career and are kind of reinventing themselves and finding a second career. It's very inspiring to me. And so I think, kind of what we're doing is important, is to just talk to as many people as you can, and to kind of, and not be afraid of reinventing yourself at the age of 55 or whatever it is you are. And not, not having to like do a full sale rehaul of your life, but just, figuring out what's that next chapter going to be? What's chapter 3? And chapter 3 it's always the most exciting chapter. I mean, I don't know. It's, in the movies, when all the good stuff,
Exactly.
you've gone through, if you're following the hero's journey, chapter 3, the last chapter, the final chapter, the final act is, well, I would say the final act, because we're probably the final act's probably act 5, but we're over the hardest part, hopefully.
Right.
At this point.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now we're in the sort of stage where we're at we're the hero's journey. We're on our way back to the place where we came with more knowledge.
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I mean, I know we say things like, boy, I wish I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self this advice, whatever it might be. And the funny thing is like, well, you have the ability now. It's like, what is it that you want to do? And I think that's the hope that I feel, is like, I feel this really weird excitement of returning to things I set aside for 20, 30 years, where it's like, okay, I wasn't going to do this. I'm not going to be able to read this. I don't have time for this kind of fun. Now I'm like, why not? Why not return to it? And then, finding creative ways to make a little money here, a little money there. I think that's the thing that's a mind shift, which is very different than our parents, the boomers, very different than initial Gen X, where it's like, yeah, we have a job and then we go to another job and another job. But now it's like, well, what if that isn't how you make money? What if you don't make a living this way? I think Daniel Pink talks about that. But it's like, we're all going to become entrepreneurs in some sense. And the internet has enabled it, for better or for worse. There's things to hate about it, but there's a lot of good too, that it has enabled us to have a global voice where we can reach people all over the world and we can make money doing so. And instead of thinking of, what is the one holy grail thing I'm going to do that's going to replace all my income and that's all I have to do? It's like, that's not how it works anymore.
No, baby steps.
It is. It's baby steps. It's multiple income streams. And it is doing more of what you really enjoy. And hey, if it makes money on the way, fine, right? Whatever it might be. But finding creative ways like you're doing. I think you're doing some consulting, some coaching, advisory work, writing. Similar. I'm doing a lot of that too. And I think what's interesting is I no longer put the pressure on any one of those things to be 100% income for me. And I used to. And now it's like, okay, it isn't. And that's okay. Yeah. It's 20%. Then what's my next 20%? I'll find another thing too. And
maybe one of those things will take off in a way that you didn't realize.
Sure.
I mean, I think you just don't know. I think the trap we fall in is trying to like figure all that out in our heads and not just doing it. And I know this is
Yeah.
kind of a recurring theme of this talk, but it's like I can't tell you the amount of ideas I've had that never see fruition because they're kind of stuck in my head. Um, hey guys, I'm on a podcast. I'm sorry, I'm doing a podcast.
Big surprise.
Sorry. Like,
Can't
yeah,
believe-
this is live. This is live. What it's like.
It's like that guy doing the TV interview. His kid comes dancing in.
Yeah, it's like this kid comes rolling in. Like, the weird thing is that was my cat, which is weird that I didn't know she knew how to knock like that. But she gets really upset. She gets really upset when I don't, because she's very used at this time of the day of being on my lap.
Having control. Yeah.
No, it's so nice to, one of the things I noticed is that, I used to have so much like guilt about like reading a book in the middle of the day. Like to me, that was like a
Sure,
luxury,
yeah,
not
yeah.
afford. And I realized the other day, like, why is that any different than, looking at my computer? Like reading a book, I'm probably nurturing my mind and my life
Mhm.
more than like scrolling through my emails, right? Like why is one
Right.
thing, my whole life, I kind of made a taboo about, reading is for like other time, not work time.
Right.
Like, that's nighttime, or like even watching a movie, like that's, ooh, you don't do that. But actually, I'm starting to realize that is just as valid a thing to do during the day. If anything, it's more important, I think, as you get older.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to discover a funny thing as you hit, I'll call it semi-retirement. Because I think the thing John talks about and I've talked about is like full retirement, just golfing somewhere in Florida.
Yeah, whatever.
You're not going to like it as much as you think you're going to like it.
Yeah, that's
Pretty
boring.
boring. But as you're doing this, it's like you realize almost sound like a Matthew McConaughey. Time is a construct. It's like it is. You start to realize the only thing that's real is darkness and daylight and the weather, the seasons. And the rest of it, like what people will ask me, what is the day? And I was like, I actually don't know what day it is. And they
that's
think
great.
something's wrong with me. And I'm like, I
Right.
seriously don't know what day it is.
Yoda didn't know what day it was.
Yeah, exactly. And
He was
sometimes I
living
don't
in
know
a
what month it is.
belly of a beast.
But it is like you're just saying, it's like, I think the funny, like unbelievably liberating freedom is realizing this is an artificial construct that was created for factory jobs and, the whistle blowing and getting to work and the
You're
months
not
and
looking
all
at
that
your
stuff.
computer that you're not working somehow. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy how much that has been ingrained in my brain over the years. Like if
Sure.
I'm not on my computer, that I'm somehow like wasting.
Yeah, and you
time.
feel guilty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
terrible.
used to feel that way. I remember feeling like this is a billable time. I could be doing billable hours. Why am I at a park with my kids? It's like, no, forget that. And John knows this, but my wife and I've made Wednesday, you can call it a weekend if you want, but on Wednesday, I just don't do any work. I just go hiking. I go hiking all day. And it's like, I used to feel guilty about it. And now I'm like, wow, this is a freedom and it's such a joy. It's like, because I do work at night and I work on a Saturday and everything.
Yeah,
Because days no longer mean
Well,
anything to me.
it's true.
So I work when I have the energy, when I feel really good about it. And I feel like the rush of energy to write something and work on my book or to do some sales stuff and marketing stuff. Because I used to be forced into a model of what my employer said. Now it's time to do this. Now it's time to do that. Even if my energy was like, I don't feel like doing that. And now,
At 4:00 when people are asking you to close an issue and you're just like,
No.
it's 4 freaking o'clock.
yeah.
This is
I
the time when
hate
I'm the
that.
least productive.
Or right
Uh,
before the holidays. It's like everybody's getting ready to become a pumpkin. They're disappearing. They're going on the holidays, and you're supposed to be cranking on stuff. And it's like, my energy's not there, man. It's like, I just want to wind down at the end of the year. And I'm starting to block my calendar now every year
I
and
love that.
say, I'm just gone in December, man. It's like, don't have time. I'll do fun stuff like this, but no, I'm
Yeah.
not going to push myself. I'm just going to be with family, just relax, eat some good food. Yeah. No, it is. That's the hope
But
I want to leave.
but it's a reset of your mind because I do think we have been so, I don't know, hypnotized or, indoctrinated with a way of thinking about work that was really unhealthy. I do think the one thing we can learn, the one thing, there's a lot of things, but I think Gen Z is actually pretty good about like work-life balance.
Yeah, they are.
I think it's because we screwed it up so bad, right?
Yeah, they saw
I mean,
us and went, "Don't want
they're like,
that."
"I don't want that. I don't want any piece of that." Because like, I had no work-life balance at all in my 20s and 30s. Like, that the expectation of working in the magazine industry was that you worked your ass off, you didn't get paid a lot, but you had this glamorous kind of life,
Mhm, mhm.
wasn't that glamorous, but, and, but the price was that, you were coming in on the weekends, you weren't getting paid extra to work on the weekends, you were just working on the weekends because that's what everybody did, and it was like, it's terrible.
Yeah,
I mean, looking back, it was terrible. No wonder that
yeah.
industry imploded. Um,
Hasn't killed tech yet, no. There's a new one now where it's like I can't remember the numbers, 997 or something. But anyway, they're expected to work like 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and they're
yeah,
like,
and then the tech figured out how to make the office like an apartment, a really fancy apartment
"Here's your free food."
Yeah, with your free food and your arcade machines and your pool, so you basically just spend the entire time in
Yeah,
your office, which was not
yeah.
the deal when I was
That's
working.
what they want. That's what they want.
Yeah.
That's why they like to hire young people, because once you have a family and your kids are like, "Why aren't you home, dad?" That's
Yeah.
not so appealing anymore.
Yeah, you don't wanna be around. But I also think that you still will work hard. Like, I got my work done even when I was older and,
Yeah,
maybe even more so than some of my peers that were some of my coworkers that were younger than me. I just did it in a different way, do it at
sure.
night after the kids went to bed or,
Yeah,
just do it times.
yeah. Well, time expands to fill the or work expands to fill the time you give it, and I think
Yeah.
that's what we've seen time and again. It's like, if I tell myself I have to get this article done in 4 days, it takes 4 days. If it's like, "Oh, no, it's due in 2 hours," I get it done somehow. I get it done in 2
Yeah,
hours. It's like just
it's true.
magic. Magic how that works. Well, this has been great, John. Where can people,
Really great.
find you? Where can they learn more about you?
Please find me and please subscribe. Small Talk on Substack. That is kind of like my main hub right now. One thing I had learned is that I think it's important to just have one place that people go. Otherwise, it's too confusing because
Yeah,
I'm all over everything.
yeah,
But Small Talk leads to my YouTube and to my podcast, etc. But subscribe to Small Talk and let me know what's on your mind because I'm constantly writing about what people are thinking about, and I'd love to be a speaker to your thoughts and sort of amplify them and sort of and talk to other people and help people navigate through this because I certainly have needed help
yeah,
and have been needing
yeah. It's time to give back, right? Be the Yoda. Be the Yoda.
Yoda. Thank you, Autumn. This has been an
Yeah,
excellent conversation. Really enjoyed listening today. Well, we really enjoy people like you commenting, and it's really great.
love it.
I'm so happy I met Larry. Again, somebody that I probably
Likewise.
would have never met had I
I
not
know.
had 'cause
Without
we don't run in
Substack,
the same circles, right?
although we're both in California, but
That's true.
people need to realize California is huge. It's so I have friends who are in LA and they're like, "Hey, I'm in LA. You want to come have lunch?" I'm like, "I could be there in 9 hours." Like, shoot.
Exactly. California is like it's like a country. It's like it's country
It's
unto itself.
massive. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
massive.
I know.
Yeah. That's the only thing we want you to remember from today. California is
Yeah.
massive.
Remember, California is very big, and your everything will be good in your life.
Well, thanks again, John. It's been great
Thank
having you
you,
on the
Larry. This
show.
has been awesome, and this has worked out on this. This is the first time using
Yeah.
Substack on our desktops. This is really cool.
Yeah,
that you
this is
can do this now.
solid because we can use good
Yeah.
mics and everything, so,
Yeah, love it.
I like
All
it.
right, I'm gonna do what's this sound effect?
Oh, yeah.
See? That's the applause.
The crowd loves us.
The crowd loves it.
The crowd goes wild. Love
The
it.
crowd goes wild. All right, have a great day,
Thanks, everybody. All right.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.